honestly, the thing I appreciate the most about you and what your father are doing is how open you guys both are. Like you aren't pretending to be these kind of like sages on a stage where you have everything figured out and you have the idyllic father-son relationship. Like, you're like, no, we're real people and we have emotions like everyone else. We've got, little wounds like everyone else, but we love each other, and we're just kind of by example showing you that there's a better way and there's a path forward as an adult child and a parent, which is huge, because I love that you guys you avoid the blame game, which I think is a trap. It's so easy to say, this is all your fault and no accountability with me, and I'm just going to be here stuck for the rest of my life, versus saying, I'm also an adult and I can make decisions for myself. So your bad behavior or parenting or whatever it is, your trauma it can't be an excuse for your behavior at some point, which I love, is like that accountability factor.
Tell you a funny story?
Yeah, of course.
So I was saying to you before the show, and I think you know this, you said you've watched a few episodes. I have this new podcast called Let's Get Lyrical with Carice and Daniel. Carice Van Houten from Game of Thrones is my co-host, and we talk about song lyrics. It's just one of my passions. I'm a songwriter myself. And we had my dad on as our first live stream guest. And the topic was trauma, illness, and healing songs. So he brought in a few, but we kind of surprised him with some. And I played him like a Kendrick Lamar song about healing that just blew his freaking mind. But early in the show, I played him Because of You by Kelly Clarkson, which he had never heard. And I'd never really listened to closely. And we had this on-camera, like live disagreement about it. And I got really snippy with him. I should have just let him finish his thought, but I got really triggered. And of course, when you're triggered, who's the one who's carrying the ammo? The trigger is the smallest part of the gun. We often throw that word around, not realizing, well, if I'm triggered, that's mostly on me.
Yeah.
But what he said after the song, he's like, wow, that's really powerful. I didn't know pop music could handle topics like this. And then he said, well, it is kind of a victim mentality. And you know the lyrics, right? Because of you, I never stray too far from the sidewalk. Because of you, I always stay on the safe side so I don't get hurt. Because of you, I not only distrust myself, but everyone around me. Because of you, I'm afraid. And he's like, well, it is kind of a victim mentality it's kind of stuck. And I was like, Dad, I'm going to stop you right there, because I'm going to stick up for Kelly Clarkson. Never uttered that sentence in my life. Because I think she's at a stage in her healing and she needs to be there. And I don't think a pop song or anybody, even, and I still have the energy of the sort of righteous indignation, even as I'm telling the story now. We don't want to gaslight ourselves with spiritual, reading, trying to skip to the end of the book. I know I'm supposed to forgive. Therefore, I shouldn't be where I am. Well, she's depicting, a pop song captures a moment, right? She's depicting a moment where she's probably, as Carice said on the show, probably all her life, she said, it's because of me. It's my fault that I struggle. I'm such a piece of shit. That's often what we do until we start to follow the trail of traumatic breadcrumbs back to the source and realize, this isn't me. This is because of something that happened to me, or as we say in the book, it's because of something that happened inside of me as a result. But it's true in a certain sense that because of who the parent was, including their limitations and the environment in which they were parenting and all of the trauma they were carrying, I absorbed what I absorbed. And I sort of wanted to sort of put a flag in the ground and say, I think it's important to honor that moment and not rush through it when someone can say, it's not me, it was my childhood. And if they can fully feel that and the anger and the grief of that and really grieve that, then there's a chance of saying, okay, and the past is done. And you're not that person now. Or maybe you're still someone, because it's also a legitimate thing to say, I don't want you in my life. There's nowhere in our work are we telling people you should have a relationship with your parents. You need to have a relationship with your adult kids. This is the other nice thing about this relationship. And also it's the tricky thing. It's optional. When you get to be an adult, you don't need each other anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you stay in the relationship, now it's on you to make choices, to set and enforce boundaries, and to communicate in a way that has the best chance of that other person, given who they actually are, not your fantasies of who they should be. And this is what we adult kids run into.
Oh my gosh.
Has a likelihood of being able to hear and absorb and act upon. And that's on me. And my tendency is to blame him if I can't say it the way he'll hear it. But actually I wouldn't do that to anyone else.
100%. You have to, some of the best advice I got was you have to love people where they're at and for who they are, not who you want them to be. So I think we idealize the perfect mom or the perfect dad. And when they fall short, you're like, why can't you just X, Y, Z?
And one of the ways we coped early on, fantasizing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes.
I wish daddy would just,
to escape into, the Brady Bunch, essentially.